everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the SBK Betting Podcast. Pleased to rejoin Ross and Tom after a week at Goodwood last week, which does feel like years ago considering the heat spell that we had and the change of weather that there is this week. But it was a glorious week in all sense of the occasion, and now we're really in the heat of summer. I've got to try and relish these days before we get back into the swing of the winter months. But it is good racing. We've got Group 1 action on Saturday, Europe's first Group 1 actually of the year for juveniles, and it's hotly contested as always. Just a small field, but a good field this year, and all these Group 1s for the 2-year-olds start swinging quite quickly with the Morney the following week after. We're also going to cover the Sweet Solera Stakes, another juvenile race for fillies, as ever in the company of TC and Ross. And the Phoenix Stakes, we'll start with Whistle Jacket. We've got Babouche, Arizona Blaze, Shadow Army and Rudy's Apple make up the field. And Jer Lyons is bidding to become the first trainer to sire a filly to win the Phoenix Stakes since Kevin Prendergast did so in 2011. La Colina was the name of the filly, but fillies don't have a bad record. We saw Porta Fortuna finishing runner-up in last year's renewal. But does that matter? Tom Collins, I'll come to you first. We've seen Aidan O'Brien absolutely dominate over the last while or so. His horses are just really strengthening up. I don't know how good his quality of 2-year-olds are, but maybe Whistle Jacket is right at the top of that list. What would you think?
Well, if you're going on reputation, then I think Whistle Jacket is at the top of the list based on the buzz we had going into Royal Ascot this year. Okay, he didn't perform necessarily in his respective race. He didn't run badly, he just didn't manage to win. But then he came back in the July Stakes and he was very impressive despite hanging across the track. Now, he is obviously the horse to beat. He's got a rating of 111, which puts him up there with kind of what you need to win the Phoenix Stakes. But at the same time, he's going to be probably 1 to 2 come the off. Do I want to put a big bet on at 1 to 2? No, I'm not the type of punter to do that. I'll probably sit this one out, but I definitely wouldn't be interested in him at a very short price if I was to have a play. And then you get to Babouche, and you kind of stole my thunder there with the stat about La Colina in 2011. And it's not, as you say, it's not to say the fillies don't have a good record necessarily against the boys. It's just that they haven't won this race for a long time, and that kind of puts me off a little bit. I think the previous winner to that was in 2007. So, you know, we're stretching 17 years, and only 2 fillies have won it, and that it kind of is enough to put me off Babouche. Now, obviously, she's been very good so far, but if she's going to beat Whistle Jacket, then she needs to improve. And I don't really want to bet a horse that, 9 to 4, 5 to 2, whatever price she's going to be to do that. And the market kind of has this race as just a 2-horse match race, albeit heavily swayed in Whistle Jacket's favour. But I think Arizona Blaze has a chance. Now, I'm gutted that there aren't 8 runners because that kind of gets rid of the major each-way play in this race. But at the same time, if one of these 2 favourites disappoints, then Arizona Blaze could definitely play a big part in at least hitting the frame. And that doesn't even really fully encompass his talent because he's already beaten Whistle Jacket in his career. So he must have the ability to beat him again if Whistle Jacket maybe performs at 95% instead of 100%. And you're getting, 10 to 1 right now, supposedly. We are just filming this immediately after declaration, so that price may not hold up by the time you're watching. But if it does, I think that's very fair. Last time up, I just didn't think he wanted the ground. It was yielding, I think, or good to soft, and he wants quicker ground. Prior to that, he ran very well at Royal Ascot when he raced all alone up against the near side in a race that was dominated down the middle. So I think he has enough talent to go close. He's quite clearly an out-and-out 2-year-old. He's doing all his best running this year for Ammo Racing, and at the prices, he would be the value play. But I'm not overly excited about this from a punting point of view.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I suppose there's not depth, but if he is as good as he showed Whistle Jacket, and he's done a lot of racing, then he could be hard to beat. But happy to take him on. Arizona Blaze, and yeah, I think just quickly, Ammo Racing, considering how much they invested in it, is this the best of their 2-year-olds? We haven't really seen a huge amount more from the purple and white.
Yeah, it looks that way at this stage. Maybe they've got some back-end types. At least you'd be hoping they do, given how much they spent. They liked quite a few horses at the start of the year that just haven't performed. So, yeah, it's not been the best of seasons for their juveniles.
Yeah, rated 101 officially, and actually that's on par with Rudy's Apple, who's the outsider. Shadow Army's actually rated higher, 104, and Whistle Jacket's got an extremely high rating of 111. As TC said, this is based off of what he's already done. He's a Group 2 winner, a listed winner already at the Curragh, so we know what he can do there, and he stepped up to 6 pretty nicely. On pedigree, no nay never. He's got all the he's got a swagger about him, this Whistle Jacket, and I think that's possibly, as we've seen, he's closely related to Little Big Bear. He's kind of inherited all those attributes, Ross. But what have you sort of made of Babouche and what she throws up as a challenge? Because Joe Lyons is excellent to listen to. He's no problem going up against the big boys, and and also the connections. But she's going to have to be very good, even if she does have that £3 swing to beat a horse of this caliber.
Yeah, but I think that applies to everything in the field, Jess. I think Whistle Jacket clearly, not revealing anything particularly enlightening here to say that he is the standout in this field. But I like what she did. I thought she was really professional at Cork over 6 furlongs. It is worth pointing out it was 6.5 furlongs last time when she beat Camille Pizarro, and she got on top quite late. So I think she's going to need this to be run at an end-to-end gallop, which I think is a strong possibility. Whistle Jacket's pretty, speedy, pretty free going, as is Arizona Blaze. And I think if they go hard, she can finish second best behind Whistle Jacket. But I just think he's standout. It's not a race I'm going to have a bet in. I've got no interest in betting him odds on whatsoever. But at the same time, I don't want to throw money away backing something, to oppose him, because I don't think he's really opposable. His only defeat came at Royal Ascot. I think the ground was too quick, and I think probably if they had it back again, they might give him a bit more of an aggressive ride. I think Ryan Moore expected him to pick up better than he did. Yes, Arizona Blaze is in front of him there, but he's already beaten Arizona Blaze, like you say, earlier on in the season. I think he's standout here. The 6 furlong suits him well. You say closely related. He's full brother to Little Big Bear, who won this 2 years ago, and he won it in really impressive style. I'm not sure this horse is quite as good as Little Big Bear was as a 2-year-old, but I think he's comfortably better than these. And I would, if someone wanted to play a forecast, Babouche would be the one for me. I suspect that Arizona Blaze might even end up going off second favourite. That might mean that she is a little bit of value if you wanted to play the forecast. But for me, it's a race to watch in a division where we're still yet to see a real standout. I mean, I don't think Whistle Jacket has got any chance of being a Guineas horse, and we're still desperate to try and find a couple of top class sort of looking colts ready for next year. We've probably seen one in the Aidan O'Brien camp, but it's been pretty thin picking so far when thinking about horses that are going to go further than this 6 furlongs.
Yeah, I agree. And especially if you look at Goodwood last week, we saw a couple of upsets really in the main group races for 2-year-olds. There's nothing that's really caught the imagination, certainly nothing on the same replica of Big Evs anyway. So yeah, we're kind of sort of waiting for it. And maybe interesting that Joe Lyons has decided to go this route instead of taking on the really standout horses from a 2-year-old perspective have been Fairy Godmother and Bedtime Story, haven't they? So he'd decide rather take on these boys and then immediately. There's something about Babouche. I think that she's a horse that would really relish 7 furlongs. She is by Kodiak though. She seems to have relaxed now. She's going through the motions of training, and I'd imagine they are going to go quite hard with like real speed balls in there. So I'm happy to just include her in tentatively. I'm not like massively keen to get stuck in here, but Babouche for me. Let's move on to the Sweet Solera. As just looking at this and how it shaped up, we've got another Aidan O'Brien representative in Lake Victoria who is 11-8 coming over to represent the yard. We've got Mountain Breeze, who showed herself off to be a very exciting type very early on in the season for the Charlie Appleby team, 15-8. Pat Dobbs is booked on, and I have to say Sean Levy booked to be on Lake Victoria for Aidan O'Brien. He is used quite a lot by Aidan when they bring several horses over. Flaming Stone is 15-2. Liberalize is 15-2. Elsie's Ruan for Gemma Tatti, great to have her represented here, is 14-1. Dream Voyage 16-1. And Angelica Bay, the maiden, and don't forget Ollie Sankster can get his maidens to win these nice contests, is 40-1 in here. So yeah, I suppose, Tom, it's another 7-runner race, so not ideal from a betting perspective. But you were always keen on Mountain Breeze. Are you still? What do you think of her now after what happened last time when she was beaten and quite fair and square in the end by Arabian Dusk?
Yeah, I really liked her at the start of the year. I thought she was the best filly actually going into Royal Ascot. Obviously, I was proven wrong, and quite decisively so. She was stuffed by the Aidan O'Brien wonder filly, really. But she's kind of leveled off. And, she's already proven that she can win the Sweet Solera. She's got a rating of 103, I think. And if you go back through the last decade, the winners of the Sweet Solera average around an RPR of 103. So if she's going to repeat that, then she's going to be there or thereabouts. There is no doubting it. However, in this renewal, I think we're looking at a slightly better Sweet Solera than we've got used to. Now, that's not saying much because, albeit it's got Group 3 status, I think it's kind of been a listed race over the last 10 or so years. But this one looks slightly better. There are a couple of horses in here with a lot of potential. And considering Mountain Breeze has levelled off, she is the right price because she's the proven quantity. But there's a lot of room there for an improver just to go past her in terms of ability. And I think there's going to be one in Aidan O'Brien's Lake Victoria. It's not original. She's going to be favourite in this race. I actually like the jockey booking of Sean Levy. Whenever he gets on an Aidan O'Brien trainee with a chance, which isn't very often because he usually rides the pace setters, I like to think that he's going all out to win the race. And it's not to say he wouldn't do that any other occasion, but when you ride for Aidan, you want to make an impact. Lake Victoria, I loved her debut. She kind of sat up there, but she was raw. She was on the speed, but still looked inexperienced. But as soon as Ryan shook the reins, whoosh, she immediately put 3 lengths between herself and the rest of the pack in just a matter of strides. And that's a sign of a really good young horse. Late in the race, that advantage kind of got eroded quickly. But the runner-up has subsequently come out and bolted up for JL Lyons and also looks a really nice 2-year-old. So I think the form's pretty strong with the first 2 home in that maiden in Ireland. And if she improves anything, I think she'll beat Mountain Breeze. She's a fair price at 6-4. However, long term, if you're betting horses like this that are priced up on potential only, you are going to make a loss. This is just the one instance where I think short term comes into mind here. Lake Victoria is the best horse in the race. She's priced on potential, but you don't really need to have that much potential to go past the kind of flag bearer right now in Mountain Breeze. So I'm happy to take the short price.
It's interesting that there are a lot of horses in this field that we haven't really seen the best of yet, and that's the thing. I would imagine that she's probably going to benefit, in my opinion, just by stepping up to 7 furlongs. That was my angle with her. But it'll be interesting to see if Lake Victoria, based on her beautiful pedigree, Frank Latta Quiet Reflection, is just a better horse in general. Don't forget this race was won by Fallen Angel last year, who went on to win the Moyglare, so a Group 1 filly. We could see something special in here. Do you think it's between the 2 of them at the top, Ross? Lake Victoria, Mountain Breeze, kind of slightly obvious ones?
Yeah, I'm afraid it is, Jess, with the 7 runners. If it had been 8, I perhaps might have tried to get a bit more tenuous and find a link, because as you said, Ollie Sangster has already picked up group races with a maiden already this year, maiden filly as well this year. I completely agree with TC in that I think Lake Victoria is impressive. Like you say, she's got a beautiful pedigree by Frank Latta Quiet Reflection, and she was impressive the way she shot clear on debut at the Curragh, but she was plenty green enough in front, and I wasn't overly in love with her head carriage. It was bordering on being a bit too high for my taste. So at a short price, the lack of experience, that high head carriage, which might not necessarily lend itself to this track because of the dip. And TC's right, Mountain Breeze has perhaps plateaued off a little bit, but she's plateaued off over 6 furlongs. She was 4th in the Albany, which I think was a pretty good race. 2nd in the Duke of Cambridgeshire last time, staying on over this track, but over 6 furlongs. I mean, she was the one running home late on. I think there's every chance that she improves to 7 furlongs. The Dam produced Pinatubo. The Dam's winning form was at a mile 3+. So I think it would be folly to dismiss that she's not going to improve for this 7 furlongs, for all that Lake Victoria has probably got more upside because she's only run once. But then you flip that on its head. Mountain Breeze has got loads of experience. She's got experience of the track. I know there's a difference between the Rowley Mile track and the July course, but there's some similarities, and she won twice at Newmarket earlier in the year. I would love to have seen William Buick on her, got Pat Dobbs instead, but he won on her on her second start. I could see Lake Victoria going off too short because she's an Aidan O'Brien trained filly. with one win next to her name from one start. I think Mountain Breeze, for exactly the reasons TC has sort of explained, might get overlooked because people think she's not going to step forward. And I think, yes, she might be a 2-year-old, an out-and-out 2-year-old, but this is a 2-year-old race. So the fact that Charlie Appleby has already given her 4 runs, prepared to go again, I like her, and I think she will prove to be a little bit of value against Late Victoria, who I suspect to be a short price favourite.
Okay, right. Well, I think that the form of the Albany has worked out really nicely. We know what Simmering's done. Heaven's Gate won a valuable median auction race type of thing in Ireland and is going into the Phoenix. California Dream has actually ran well since, as is Royalty Bay over in France. So I think that form is really solid. And I think Mountain Breeze will be very much benefited by the step up in trip. So Ross and I will be taking TC on Mountain Breeze in the Sweet Solera for us both, Lake Victoria for TC. So that is our main feature races. And just a reminder that SBK have a 25% winnings boost on the Phoenix Stakes. And if you want to take advantage of that, and you can use either any of our selections, we will go on different viewpoints for that Phoenix Stakes. That is the Group 1. We do have opportunity for Naps Next Best. It's Curragh Cup Day on Saturday. Not for everyone, but it's actually good level racing, I think. There's a good lot of horses in the field, smaller fields because of the amount of jockeys that there are, obviously from all over the world teaming up and so forth. But not bad racing. We've got Haydock as well, the return of Umnat. We've got great racing internationally as well. So because TC, I listened to this podcast and I was as heartbroken as you would have been about Apollo 1, second in the Stewards Cup again, I'm going to give you the floor and hope that you can get one with first past the post this weekend.
Yeah, the last 3 weeks have literally been hitting the woodwork with every UK selection, much better than the US, which hopefully we'll touch on at the end of this podcast. But yeah, stick to the UK, hopefully a better weekend. My nap is going to be a horse who I've actually tipped recently and who hit the woodwork last time, finishing 3rd, and that was Mount Tider in the 4:15 at Newmarket. Now, I love the first 3 runs of this horse in maiden and novice races. He showed experience on the 3rd outing when he won, going down the downhill straight at Chepstow, and he won decisively. Prior to that, he looked a little bit raw and inexperienced, but finished 4th and 2nd in a couple of good novice events. I really liked him last time at Sandown. I thought Oisin Murphy gave him a great ride up until the 3 furlong pole, and then he kind of just sat in front. And when you sit in front of Sandown, the horses come down the outside quickly, and he kind of didn't ask for anything until the other horses were alongside, and I don't love that. Now, not to say that Mount Tider would have won, I just don't think it was the best possible ride for the horse, especially when you're riding the track bias, which is to be forward at Sandown. Nevertheless, he wasn't beaten far, obviously finishing 3rd. He's been left on the same handicap mark of 89, and I think this is a very winnable race at Newmarket, a track that should definitely suit him with that uphill finish. So hopefully he'll win the 4:15. My next best is at the Curragh Cup. I don't know who's riding this horse because jockey declarations aren't out just yet, which is, again, pretty frustrating. But it's Giraffe in the 3:20. I was at Kempton last year in October when he made a winning debut. I saw him in the paddock in the prelims beforehand, and just a huge horse that hadn't fully grown into the stature, yet suddenly made a winning debut. And I immediately put the horse in my tracker going forward. Came back at Newbury this year, was well punted into a short price favourite. I think he finished 4th or 3rd. He ran perfectly fine behind a horse called Monkey Island for Brian Meehan. Then next time he didn't really improve. And I was thinking, God, maybe this horse isn't what I expected. I didn't really think he was just going to stay at that level after the 2-year-old campaign. But last time we saw a much better run at Ascot, which ticks the box of course form. I love this race for Giraffe. And if you look through the rest of the opposition in here, there are quite a few improvers, but they've been improving at lower levels, so they now need to prove themselves at this tougher status of race. Or you've got horses at the top end of the handicap who have been struggling to get their head in front recently. Giraffe is kind of the only unexposed horse who's won recently and has that huge room for improvement. So hopefully he can win the 3:20 Ascot, depending on who's riding.
Thanks for that, TC. Got Giraffe at 3:20 at Ascot and Matt T in the 4:15 at Newmarket. Ross, what are you? You close fan, follower of the Curragh Cup to keep you interested this Saturday?
It wouldn't be a betting medium for me, Jess, but I do quite enjoy it. I enjoy things that get people that perhaps wouldn't ordinarily engage in racing sort of perhaps draw in a little bit when they hear that this is big international competition. Because when you hear international about anything, you always think it's going to be a higher standard. And whilst we might think that's not necessarily the case, it certainly draws people in. So yeah, I'm all up for it. I do watch it, but I couldn't go near it without knowing who was riding. Although to be said, with international jockeys riding, it perhaps wouldn't be much help to me even if I did know who was riding, because I'm pretty much UK and Irish based when it comes to the flat. So I've steered away from there. My NAP comes in the 2:30 at Newmarket, and it's the Eve Johnson Houghton trained Defence Missile. He was second in a maiden at Newbury, which I think TC agreed with me. I thought was going to work out like a really nice maiden. It looked like a great race, and wrote about it, pulled out 3 or 4 horses in there that I thought were horses to follow. And for the few runs afterwards, it just didn't work out at all. But since then, Jouncey, who was placed, has won. King of Bears has won. And Mr. Chaplin, who won it, absolutely bolted up at Goodwood last time, despite getting a really bad passage through in a nursery. Defence Missile then ran in the Chesham. That was probably just tilting over the top. That might have been a day out for a nice picnic at Royal Ascot. Came back and was third at Salisbury behind, and the horse that was second was Original. Sorry, the horse that won that was Original. No, finished second. Let me get it right. Was Original Outlaw. Original Outlaw chased home Mr. Chaplin in that nursery at Goodwood last time. Looks like a really solid piece of form. He's now rated 86. Defence Missile gets in here off 80. I think that's a really lenient mark. Perhaps didn't stay over the stiff 7 at Salisbury last time, but I think this 7 furlongs will be absolutely fine. Back into easier company again, a mark of 80. Eve Johnson Houghton's got a good bunch of 2-year-olds this year, and I think Defence Missile will get the first win on the board on his first start in nursery company. And then the next best comes in the 4:45 at Haydock, and it's Naomi Lapalgia, who actually 2 years ago, Richard Spencer very kindly helped with a piece sort of called Late Bloomers that I do for Juvenile Watch, and he nominated this filly. Perhaps didn't work out for her as quickly as he thought last year, but she looks like being even better as a 4-year-old. Made a really good return in a listed contest at Deauville. Then followed that up when third in the Valiant Stakes Group 3 last time, which I thought you could upgrade because she was fishing quite a long way back. She didn't pull hard, but she was keen enough through the early stages. The winner, Friendly Soul, as we know, made all from the front. Doom was runner-up, was ridden prominently. She had to come from quite a long way back, which I think probably didn't see her to best effect. Into listed company here, I think she's got a great chance of getting a win on the board, provided this doesn't come too soon. She just probably ran quite hard last time. That would be the one concern, but I do think she's the best horse in the race. So Naomi Lapalgia in the 4:45 at Haydock is the next best.
Okay, with the services of Usheen Orr, which is a good jockey booking for Richard Spencer. I'm actually taking you on in that race, so we'll be knocking heads in this. And my nap comes in it is Indelible, who I thought ran a blinder in the Sandringham when she was 4th, and she was very well backed in, but she was coming straight into this massive handicap at Royal Ascot off the back of just a couple of novice runs, so lacking in experience. It was a big ask for her, and she did really well behind Soprano. She was then second to Spiritual, where she just still showed signs of greenness a little bit, but she stayed on nicely. That was probably on softer than preferred ground. She's got her better going conditions this time, and I think she does benefit just slightly getting a bit of a weight swing from Ross's selection. So happy with that. It's quite an interesting race. There's some fillies. Definitely when you talk about late bloomers, the likes of American Arrow could be anything. Definitely a late bloomer who's only had 1 run, but I will have my eyes firmly on that listed Dick Kern Stakes. I think it can produce some nice horses we've seen over the years, like Voracious. So keep an eye on that. 4:45 at Haydock. My next best, and in a similar vein to TC, waiting to see jockeys coming out. We've got draws, but we've got no jockeys still. So holding on for dear life this for Solomon, who is in the 3:55, the Sugar Cup Classic. This is a close relation to Solcombe, who the yard trained to good success, ended up in Australia, but was a winner of the Melrose Handicap. So it was a very good 3-year-old. And this is in sort of the same vein, is being quietly brought along by William Haggis, a son of Sayuni. He's not necessarily like Solcombe in that he's sort of bred to necessarily be an out and out middle distance prospect, but he bolted up at Haydock last weekend. And I don't think this is a massively deep contest for him to pitch up in so quickly. So Solomon for me, they're both probably short enough, so I might even double them up for my next best, which is in the 355. Now, before we go, TC, you mentioned that your American selections have been proving worth following. It's the Saratoga Derby this Saturday. We've got the likes of Legend of Time in this, who has been performing with a lot of credit internationally. We've also got Curragh, who is a recent winner of the Belmont Derby Invitational. What do you like in this? Frankie Dettori's also got a ride.
Yeah, obviously this race was supposed to be run last week, along with the Troy at Saratoga. It got delayed because the turf course was labelled as good, and they didn't want to tear up the turf track, which was just frankly ridiculous. So they've moved it 7 days on to this Saturday, but there is a tropical storm incoming, so it could be run on Sunday. There's a contentional plan to move this race to Sunday just in case. And also, just to touch on earlier, William Buick's ride at Colonial in the Arlington Minion, that race has also been moved to Sunday. So Saturday is a whole load of randomness in the US right now. Back to the race itself, the Saratoga Derby. Look, Legend of Time has a good chance of Charlie Appleby. Finished behind Trickery last time. I think Trickery is actually going to run at Colonial, and this is the second preference. Very complicated. He's got every chance, but he's going to be morning line favourite. I would be more interested in a horse called Royal Majesty, who's around 8-1 on the morning line. Should go off a little bit bigger. Well, not go off. Should open a bit bigger over here. Go off then shorter, around 6-1 for Bill Mott. This horse is son of Frankel. Big, long striding individual. Won really nicely at Keeneland. And then the last twice just hasn't had any pace to chase. He needs speed up front because he's got lots of stamina. And it takes him a while to move up into top gear. Not an extreme quickener. So hopefully he can go close at a good price. But God knows when this race is going to be run, Jess. Probably Sunday.
Look, let's hope we found you some selections that will give you a few winners this weekend. We've got that price boost for you for the Phoenix Stakes to make it a little bit more interesting. 25% winning boots on the Phoenix. Don't forget, all new SBK users, if you're new to listening to the podcast, you get £30 of free bets when you sign up and bet £10 for the first time. And also just head to SBK, as we always say, for lots of other offers and promotions. TC, Ross, wherever you're enjoying the racing, I hope it's successful for you both. And we will catch up next week.